Welcome back to the sixth part of our ICO Adapt project. In the last part, we have completed the entire custom component for our Wallet Connect button, where we have learned about the different trigger event, different function we can use from Rainbow Kid, Wings provider to build the custom model, which allow us to communicate with different wallet provider. Now we're going to start working on our hero section. So before we start, I want to come back here, go back to the global, go back to the SVG icon, and here you will find that all the three icon which we're going to use in our hero section, which is already given to all of you guys. So let's close this one, come back to the hero section, and now we're going to start working on our hero section. So click here. This component is going to be the biggest component in our entire application, where we have to build the utility function, where we have to connect the buy function with the interface so user can call the function and buy the token. So it's going to be mainly front-end code, so I will try to go a little faster. If you think that I'm going a little faster, you can simply adjust the speed right from there. So we can start working on the hero section. So what I will do, I'll simply come back here. So let's quickly remove this one. Let's import our React use state, use effect, use memo, and use ref, and that's coming from React. Then we have to import our icons, Ethereum, and that's coming from React icon. Then we have to import our USDT, that's coming from React icon. Then we have to import our wallet, and that's coming from React/IO. Then we have to import our outline question mark, and that's coming from AI. Then we have to import our fill info, and cryptocurrency means the dollar, that's coming from React. Then we have to import our USDT and coming from RI. Then we have to get our custom connect button, which we have developed in the last video, and that's what we have to import. So let's quickly import from our component. Now we have to simply import our web3 provider, which we have already done, in which we have all the function which allow us to get the data and call the buy function. Now we can come back here, let's import the ether package. Then we can come back here and let's import all the environment variables. So first one is going to be the token name. Then we have to import our token symbol. This one is the token symbol. Then we have to import our token supply, public token supply. Then we have to import our per token USD price. This one is for the calculation purpose and showing that this is the current price we have assigned. So let's get that. We'll say public per token USD price. Then we have to import next token USD price, and this will come from our environment variable next per token USD price. Then we'll import our currency, which is the native currency. Then we have to import our blockchain name because we have to display this data, and we'll say blockchain. Then we can come back here and let's take the hero section, main component. So we'll say hero section, and it's going to receive couple of proc. First we'll receive the theme, then we'll receive the referral pop-up model. Just keep it as it is. Then we can come back here and let's take all the state variable, because we're going to take the data from the input field, and that data we're going to pass into our function. So let's take a state variable, and first let's import all the function we have in our web3 provider, which allow us to call the function. So let's import that account. Then we need this is connected. We'll have a contract info. We'll have the token balance. Then we'll have the buy token. Then we'll have the add token to MetaMask, and that's coming from our web3 provider. I hope you haven't forgot this. So we got all of the function and the state variable. Now we can come back here. We'll take a variable and we'll call this selected token. By default, it will be poll. And the reason why I'm taking poll, because I will tell you that how you can change the different network. All you have to do is to change the currency, and every single thing would be set up based on the environment variable and the places where you have to do the changes. So let's go with the poll at the moment. I'll tell you how we can do the changes. Let's take the another state variable. Let's call this input amount. Set input amount. By default, it will be 0. We'll take another one. We'll say token amount to be set token amount will be 0. We'll take a has sufficient balance, because we have to check the balance before we actually execute the transaction. So we'll say set has sufficient balance. By default, it will be false. So it will return either true and false. Then we have to take a is loading. Set is loading to be true. We'll take this has attempt registration. We'll say has attempt registration. By default, it will be false. Then we can come back here. Now we have to declare a couple of variables, because we have the animation. we have the 3D effect. So for that, we need to take state variable, which we're going to execute, and it will display that. So let's take a variable called Canva ref, and we already have imported this user ref. By default, it will be none. Then we'll take another one called particles ref, and it will be an array. So we'll have a dynamic array, random array of particles coming from all the direction, and that will give the 3D look. So let's take that. Then we'll take another one called animation ref. It will be null. Then we'll have to calculate the progress percentage based on sold token versus token supply. So like there would be a quantity, and we already have a function in the contract which tells us that how many token we have sold, and we have a function, we have the total quantity available in the contract, we'll have that data. So we're going to simply calculate and display the progress bar, that how many token is remaining, how many token we have sold. So that's what we have to work. So I'm giving this comment so you can simply understand that what exactly we are doing. So let's take a variable, call this calculate progress percentage, and it's going to be a very simple function. We have to do a couple of calculation. So we can come back here. First, we'll check if required data exists. Then we'll take if contract info, because in which we'll have the data about the sold token and the balance. If it's not there, and if the TBC balance, means the actual token balance, is not there, then we have to simply throw the error message. So we'll say return 0. You can throw the error message, or you can return an empty number, because if you throw in a string, it's going to create a problem and it will give a like string value error. So let's go with a normal 0 and close this one. Now we have to do the second check, convert string value to number. So we'll say total sold. We already have the data, we have to simply convert it, and we have the data about the token we have sold. We'll say contract info dot token total sold, and we have converted. Now what we have to do is we have to simply take the TBC balance and we have to convert this as well, which we can access very easily, contract info TBC balance. So we got all of these two variables, actual balance we have in the contract. Now we can come back here. We'll take a calculation model. So we'll total supply available balance. That's how we can get it, that how many token got sold and what is the available balance. In that we can able to identify that what was the initial supply provided in the contract. So let's calculate that. We'll take a total supply. We have the total sold plus TBC balance will give the total supply. Now we have to build the calculator and we have to convert into a percentage. So we'll take this percentage, we'll say total sold divide by total supply, and we're going to simply do the 100. So it's a very simple formula for calculating percentage. Once we have the percentage value, now we can simply take this return percentage with maximum 2 digits, but the percentage can go up to like 0.123c, something like that, but we have to take the only 2 digit after the point. So we'll take this return is number percentage, and we can simply say if 0, else we go with the mat.min, and we can simply pass it the percentage with to fix amount to be true, and we'll give this 100. Simple logic. I hope you have understood that what it will do. All we have to do is to simply call this function in the component, and it's going to return the desired number, the percentage, which we have to simply display, and our styling will take place. Got it? Now we can come back here. Let's work on the properly handle the price calculation with memo to avoid recalculation. So what we'll do, we'll simply calculate the price which we have to display when the user will put the amount. So we'll take this const price, we'll say use memo is going to take a callback function. So here we have to build the logic. We'll say default fallback value, and that's obvious, we have to have a default value, you can go with the empty one. So we'll say const default ETH price, and we already have the data in the contract info, which is an object. From there we can get the ETH price. Then we can come back here, we'll take this let ETH price, we'll say try and catch, because we have to catch if anything goes wrong while user put double amount or user just give the wrong amount. So we have to simply calculate. So we'll take this handle ETH price. So we'll say if contract info ETH price, then we have to simply, if it's already big number, for a big number computation object. So we'll say if type of contract info ETH price equal to object, and contract info price is a big number, because the number you will get, the value you will get from the contract is going to be a big number. You have to do the conversion. Then In this scenario, we have to simply call this ETH price to be contract ETH price. Else, we can have to perform the calculation. We'll say if it's a string, convert it then into a number. So we'll take this ETH price is going to utils parse in, then we can pass the ETH price with a string. So it's going to give me the number in the proper format. Perfect. Let's close this one. Let's add the else block. We'll say by default, we're gonna display the ETH price equal to the utils parse, and we'll go with the default price which we have. Now we can come back here. Let's call the catch block, and if anything goes wrong, we have to handle that as well. So it's a very simple. We already have the error component. We can display our message, and we'll say ETH price is going to be our utils parse in and the default price. Perfect. And this is what you have to do whenever you are building any custom component. You have to set the value, the state value, by something default. So if it's a string, you have to set the message with a string. It could be an empty string, but if you are returning a number, you have to simply go with 0. You should never try with null or undefined. That's not a good practice. Got it? Now we can come back here. Let's take this return, and in which we have to return the entire ETH price, and let's call this particular hook whenever there is a change in the contract info, means in the object. That's time we want to call this hook. So far so good. We got our price. Now we go ahead. Let's build one more utility function. We'll say start loading effect when component mount. So when the component will load, means the application will open, we have to simply call this component to get the data. So we'll take this use effect is going to take a callback function in which we have to call the set is loading to true. Then we have to display this timeout to hide the loader after 3 seconds. Const timer set timeout is going to take a callback function. There we have to take a state loading to be false, and we're going to take this for 3 seconds. Now we can come back here. We'll take this clean up the timer if combination unmounted. Then we have to simply return a callback function, and we have to clear the timeout. Perfect. Got it? Very simple. It's just for loading state. We are not doing anything else. We are just displaying the loading for 3 seconds because it will take 1 or 2 seconds for getting the data behind the scene. So we are just adding a buffer loader system. Now we can come back here. Let's check if user has enough balance before we actually purchase the token. Otherwise, we have to throw the error message. So we can take this use effect. It will take a callback function. Will say if he's connected or we have the token balance available, then we can take this has sufficient to be false by default, and we'll return empty string. Means the user is not connected and the token balance data is not there. So obviously we have to throw this has sufficient to false. So in that way, what will happen? The button will be hidden. But if the data is there, then we have to check the value. So we'll take the check if token is below the threshold. So we have to set the threshold. You can set it to any quantity. So we'll take this load token supply. We have to simply do the conversion. We got the token. Else we go with the 0, and we need a minimum 20. I want minimum token 20 token they should buy. Okay, I have to check the supply. If it's true, then I want to allow them to execute and purchase the token. We'll say if load token supply, we'll say false, return empty. That's the first check. First we have checked for the connection, then second we have checked for the threshold. The minimum token should be available in the contract must be 20. If the token is available, then only we are allowing the user to purchase the token. Then we can come back here. We'll take this input amount, and we have to simply do the multiplication. So we'll simply convert it, and we'll go with the default 0. Take a variable called has balance. So by default it will be false. Come back here. We'll take a switch statement, selected token, and let's call this pole because we're going to deploy it to Polygon, or we can simply convert it to ETH. Let's go with the pole because I want to show you the changes that how you can convert it into any other network. That's why I'm going with this approach. Let's call this to const ETH balance, and we have to simply convert that, and we already have this user ETH balance. So when the user will connect and it will come in the form of object, Then we have the information about the ETH balance, the token balance, all of the data. By default will be 0. And then we can say that ETH balance equal to greater or equal to the input, and input float is greater than 0. So we are doing this particular check. It's going to return either true and false. Now we'll go with the default condition, in which we can simply set this to false. Means the user had no balance. Simple logic. We are checking for condition that whatever quantity he or she wants to buy, does he have enough fund in the wallet to make the payment for it? If it's true, if he has the fund, then execute further, otherwise stop that. Now we can take this has sufficient balance to be has sufficient balance, so it would be true and false. And now we can simply call this hook every time there is a connection, input amount change and selected token, and visit token balance. So if anything changes, we have to recall this particular hook. So this is the function we have for checking the balance. Now we can come back here. We'll take this calculate token amount based on input amount selected token. Simple. Same check we have to do one more time. So we'll take a variable called calculate token amount. It will take the amount and the token. We'll build this. First we have to check whether it's a number or not. So we have to do the conversion. Perfect. Simple logic. We are doing the comparison with the quantity, converting a number and checking that. Then we can come back and we'll take a variable called calculate amount, and this will be a dynamic one. So we'll take a try and catch. We'll say switch token. In that scenario, we can take the poll because that's what we are targeting. And here we have to do perform the conversion of the amount. We'll take this const amount in way. We'll take this ether utils parse. We'll pass the amount. So we got the actual amount which user are putting for buying the token. Once we have in the way, then we can take this token parse, means the quantity which user wants to purchase. Token parse, and we already have the price in ETH. That's what we got it per token. Now we have to simply call this calculate amount, and we have to perform the calculation. So we got the quantity, we got the amount, and we are performing the calculations. Very straightforward. Got it? Now we'll take the break statement. We'll take a default, and let's calculate amount is going to be 0 if that's not the condition is not getting fulfilled. And in the catch block, we can display our error message. Very simple. Error calculating token amount and the error, and it will be 0 by default. Now we can come back here with return calculate amount. We're going to take the 2 decimal only, and perfect. And this is the function we're going to call it. Now we can take other handle input amount change. As the name suggests, I want you to pause it and just give a try. It's a very simple function. Handle amount change. It will take the value. Then we have to take the set input amount is going to be the value. And we'll take the set token amount is going to be the calculated token amount. This is the function we have built in which we can pass the value and the selected token. Got it? Now we can come back here. We'll take this handle token selection change. Handle token selection, and we'll take the token. Then we'll take the select token. Same thing we are doing, we are updating the state. And here we can take this amount and we can take our calculate one input and the token. So it will give us the quantity that when we put the amount, what is the expected amount we'll get as an output of the token, and it's going to set in the state variable that can be passed into our function. Perfect. Now we can come back here. Let's call this execute purchase, and this is going to be our main function where we're going to perform the transaction, and we already have the function in our context management. So we'll take this const execute purchase, and it's going to be an async function. Then we can come back here. We'll say if contract is not connected, means the user is not connected, then I can say alert, please connect your wallet first, and we're going to return empty. That's the first check. Let's come back here. Let's do the second check. Parse input amount should be greater or equal to 0 If it's not that, then we have to throw the error message. We'll say this alert amount must be greater than 0, and we'll go with this return. That's the second check. Now come back here. If has sufficient balance, because obviously that's what we have to check. If the user have enough balance, then we want to execute the transaction. So the moment user will put the quantity is going to trigger and it's going to give either true and false. So we'll say if parse float token balance is equal to fx balance is 0 or get less than 20, then we'll take this alert and we'll say insufficient token supply, please try again later. And we'll call this else alert insufficient selected token and the balance, that how much user has, and close this one. And at the end we are going to return empty string. That's the fourth check. Now we can come back here. We'll take this try and catch, and in which we're going to call our function. So we'll say let transaction, we'll call this transaction dot buying with input amount and the selected token, means ether or pole, whichever network you have deployed the contract. Then we can perform the transaction. So we'll say set switch selected token, we'll take this course pole, and we'll take this transaction await by token. So this is the function we are calling, in which we have to pass the input amount, and it's going to have the break. We'll have the default is going to be our alert, please select a token to purchase with, and that's the only thing we have to do. So we're done with that. Now come back here. Let's take a variable called console.log, and where we can able to see the entire transaction one is got completed. Then we can say console.log, and there we can display the entire message successfully purchased, the token amount and the token symbol. That's what we can display in the console. Now we can simply take this reset amount. So all the data user have put, like the input field, we have to just reset it and set it to 0 or empty. So let's come back here. Let's call this selected input token amount is going to be 0. Token amount is going to be 0. And in the catch block, we have to simply throw the error message. So we'll take this console error buying with selected token and the error, and we have to reset that. Let's call this transaction failed, please try again, and we have to close this one. Perfect. So this is the entire execute function we have for purchase. Now we can come back here. Let's take this get current balance based on selected token. So we can come back here, take a variable called get current balance. Here we have to build a simple condition to get that, and if the user is connected, so we have to get the balance of the native currency so we can display. So we'll say if token balance is there, then we have to, if the token balance is not there, then we have to return 0. But if it's there, then we have to simply take this switch, we have to get the selected token, and we can call this case poll, and we'll call this return is going to be the token balance, and we have to get this user ETH balance, otherwise we have to go with 0, and call this default is going to be return is 0. Simple. And close this one. That's all. Simple function we have to get the balance of the native currency. Now we can come back here. We'll take this determine button test method. So we have multiple stage for our button. We have the like list fund, approve, or different message we want to display. So let's build that system. We'll call this get button message, and here we have to do the check. So we'll take this if input amount is equal to 0 or input amount is equal to empty, then we have to display that enter an amount. So let's call this enter amount. That's the first check. We'll say if parse token balance is there or it's less than 20, because that's what we are checking, then I can say that insufficient token supply, means we have less token in the contract. That's the second. Now at the end we have to return this has sufficient balance. If it's true, then we can say buy the token, else we can display the message called insufficient and the selected token balance. Simple logic which allows us to get the balance details and display different messages in the button. Now we can come back here. Let's take this get token icon logo. And this one is just for styling purpose, because based on the token selection, I have to display the icon. So you can add multiple currency. That's why we are taking the switch in case. So let's take that one. We'll take this variable called get token icon. It will take the token. Then we can take this switch. We'll take the token and we'll say case poll. In that scenario, we have to return the polygon image we have in our public folder, and let's define the width 5, height 5, and all text is going to be polygon. That's the one. Else we go with the default is going to be none. Simple logic. You can also do the hard code, but I just want to keep every single thing in dynamic. So later, if you want to include multiple currency for payments, all you have to do is to simply add the condition and it will be reflecting. Now we can come back here. We'll take the theme variable. So we're going to have multiple theme for our component, because we're going to have the animation in the background and we're going to have a different color for the light and dark mode. So let's define that one. So we'll take this const background color. If it's dark mode, then we go with this branding color. Otherwise, we have to go with our lightish. Then we'll take this text color, white, and we'll take this gray in the little white mode. Say secondary text color, text gray 400, text gray 600. We'll have the card background to be our second primary, and other in the white mode we go with white color with 95%. Then we'll take this card border gray 800, 30%, gray 100. Then we'll take this input background to be like, it will have a little slight lock. We'll say dark gray 900. Border is going to be 80, 805. And then let's add the else statement, background gray 100, border gray 200 by 70. Let's add the primary gradient, purple, and we'll have the primary gradient on over effect. We'll say 600 and this will be 700. That's what we have been following. Let's add this Asian color to be text and come back here. We'll call this token button styling. Let's come back here. Let's call this upper update buttons get token button style. We'll take the selected token and we'll say is selected. Then we can say this selected equal to token, and on that particular token we have to apply the styling. You can go with the hardcode data, but I just want to keep it dynamic. So if you want to add multiple currency, like taking the payment in USDT or USDC or any other native currency, you can add that, or you can add your own custom token for allowing user to buy. So that's why I'm going with this particular approach. Let's take this basis color and we'll say flex one, flex item center, justify center, rounded large, padding wide 2.5, transition all, duration 300. Come back here. We'll take this if selected token is there, then I can simply take this let, we'll say selected color class, and let's define that. So we'll take this switch, we'll take the selected token in which we can take this case poll and take the selected color class. We'll take this background gradient to right from our primary color 500, purple 600. On over effect we'll go with the 600 and this will be 700, text white. That's what we have been following. Come back here, we'll take this break, and that's the only currency we are taking, poll. So I'll simply call this default and we go with selected token to be our empty class, because we want to apply these classes only on the selected, which is our poll. And let's close this one, take the return, and we have to add the base classes, selected color classes, and text white, shade shadow large, and we'll close this one. This is our get button styling. Now we can come back here, we'll take this return and we have to return the entire class. We'll say if dark mode, then we'll go with the background gray 800 540. On over effect, we'll add this 8 and 60. Text gray 300. And in the same way, we have to add the dark mode. So gray on over effect gray 300. Text gray 700. And close this one. Perfect. And close this one. So this is the token button styling color we have. Now we can come back here. So now we have to work on the particles, the decorative element like the animation, the wave, and the moving particle. So let's work on that quickly. So I'll give this command, add the particles animation effect, this effect in your component. Let's take this use effect and we'll take this const canvas, which we can access this canvas ref dot current. Then we can take this, if canvas is not there, then we return empty, else we can continue. We'll say const canva context get context 2d context particles count 70. You can start with 80, 90, but 70 I'm taking, otherwise it's going to be too much. Let's take this base color. We'll define R is going to be 189, G 38, and this is the color we are using. Come back here, we'll take this set canva to full width of container, resize canva. I'm just going a little faster, okay? So let me quickly write it. Inner width, it's a simple JavaScript. So let me quickly write it. Offset. Then we can come back here. Let's take this resize canvas function and we'll call this window add event listener, and we go with the resize because when there is a resize will happen, the structure of the particles will also change and it will retrigger. We'll take this mouse interaction. We'll take this mouse X, mouse Y. We'll take a variable called handle mouse move. It will take the event, and we can take this react canva dot get bound client react. So we'll have the details about the entire boundaries. Then we can take this mouse X. They'll take the mouse Y, react top. Then we can come back here. We'll take this window add event listener to be our mouse move, and we'll call our function. Then we'll take this perspective setting. It's very simple. We'll take a perspective 400, focal length 300, initialize 3D particles. We'll take the particle and we have the current ref, and then we'll have the array. We'll fill the each particle with the color. So we'll go with this, run the X with the random, and we have to do with the same Y, random canvas height by 2. So it will have a equal size. Then we'll take this random 1000, random 4, and we'll go with the base size. I hope you can understand that what I'm doing. I'm simply filling out the color and positioning the particles and with the animation. That's what I'm doing. So I'm just going a little faster. If you think it's too fast, you can simply slow down from the settings. Let me quickly complete. We'll have a speed X. We have to define the PUI. Then we can take this speed Z. Then we can take this opacity. It will have a random, so it will have a light to heavy. Then close this one. Come back here, I'll take this animation. And we already have this one. So we'll take this variable called animate. Inside that we can take this clear react, and we have defined the positioning, width, and the height. Then we can take this soft particles by Z index, shorted particles, spread the entire particles and get the current one. Take the short, close this one. We'll take this update and draw particles We'll have the shorted particles, run a loop on it and get the particle individually and apply the mouse effects. So when there is a click will happen, the particle will randomly change. Mouse X with, and it's the same thing. It will change randomly whenever the click event will happen. So we'll say mouse influence Y. Now work on the Y axis with this value. I'm going with equal range because it's a circle, but you can play around with this value. We'll say update positioning with mouse influence X, and we'll have the speed and the influence. Then we'll have the Y axis. Now we can come back here. We'll take the particle Z speed. Now we can come back here. We'll take this if particles goes behind the viewer, then we have to reset the distance. Particles in Z and the length, let's define it randomly. The positioning, this is going to be our X, and this can be done by the canvas width and height. Let's do with the height as well. Same logic, we have to simply do the multiply and divide by 2. Then close this one. Calculate 3D projection. We'll take this scale by focal particle Z. So when the animation will come, so first it will start from very small, then it will come forward and it will give you a 3D look, and it's going to scale the circle. And it will also have a brightening color. So let's make it 2D, and we have to scale it up with the width. Then we'll take this Y. On the Y axis is going to have the equal thing. Then we'll take this scale size, particle base size, and the scale model. Calculate color based on depth. Despite math.min projector, opacity, particles opacity, and we'll have the distance. Applying color, depth. I hope you can follow it. It's a very simple JavaScript for the animation element. And if you are not familiar with the canvas, then you can check this particular project which I already have, where we have built this beautiful element, that how you can play with the Canva. So I'm just using the Canva property. I'm just going a little faster here. Okay, color variant. Now define the location. This will be G, and this will be B. So we have the RGB color. Now we can come back here, draw particles. So we have already done the logic. All we have to do is to simply inject the particles. So we'll take this being pin. That's the method we have, and we'll call this arc and pass the positioning. We'll call this fill style with our color, and we'll call this fill. Then we're going to simply add a glowing effect to each one of the circles as it comes close. So let's call this if distance is this. You can play around with the distance. Then we'll take this begin path, and then we can simply call the location and scale model. Once we have that, then we can simply call the styling, and we'll add the glowing effect with opacity. Let's take this fill and close this one. Close this one. Come back here, we'll take this animation ref current, and we have to simply request the animation. Close this one and call the function. Let's clean up, and at the end we have to simply call this cancel animation, the animation we have built, and pass the current ref. And we call this remove the add event listener for the resize. Same thing we have to do for the mouse. And close this one, and I want to execute the whenever there is a change in the mode. So if the user will change the mode The entire canvas will be reset and everything will be start from beginning. Perfect. This one is very simple. What I have done, I use the context API for the Canva, and that's what I have used for getting the data from the canvas to remove the particles. If you're not familiar with the canvas, just type it as it is, what I have done, and it will work absolutely fine. So we're done with the canvas function. Now we can come back here. We'll build the JSX. So now it's going to be the mainly front end part, but most of the component is going to be a dynamic one. So I think let's write it this way because we're not going to have much preview, much changes, because every single thing is going to be injected with the help of JavaScript with the dynamic component. So let's take this return. Let's take the div. It will have a class relative margin top 12 with full overflow hidden, and we'll have a background color. Inside that, we'll take a background element. So we'll take this background with glowing animation pattern. We'll take a div. It will have a class called absolute. Inside 0 z0. Inside the div, we're going to simply add the gradient layover. We'll take a div. It will have a class called absolute. Inside 0, and we'll have a dark and light mode. So we'll say is dark mode. Then we want to say background gradient to bottom, and we'll have our primary with the vibrant and transparent. We'll have the second primary color, which is a little darker, and we'll add the light mode as well, which is going to have a little bit grayish type of color. Perfect. Now close this one. Inside the div, we have to make it a self-closing div, and we have to make this as a self-closing div because it's going to have a waving pattern. That's the only thing we need. Now come back here. We'll take a Canva. There we have to simply call this ref. We already done the hard work for the Canva, and we can pass the Canva ref. So it will give us the waving effect, and we'll provide the class called absolute top 0 left 0 width full height full pointer event none. We'll have a z index 10. Then we'll have the set style. We're going to have a custom, so z index is going to be 1. Then we'll close this Canva. Now we can come back here. We'll take a animation and add the glowing effect to the pattern. So we'll call this div. It will have a class absolute. Insert 0 gradient pattern. It's a self-closing div. Then we can come back here. Moving light effect. We'll take this div. It will have a class absolute. Insert 0 light rays. Inside that, we'll take a div. It will have a class called right ray, ray 1. So these are the classes we're going to work. It's going to have a self-closing div. Then we'll have a div. It will have a class called right gray, ray 2. And let's have another one. Then we'll have a gray 3. Close the div. Then close the main div. So it's going to give us the lighting effect. Now we can come back here. We'll close the div. Come here, take a main content. It will have a div. It will have a class called container, max auto, padding x4, padding y 28, and on the medium device padding y is going to be 32. Relatives at index 10, and inside the div, it will take a div. It will have a class called flex, flex column, medium, flex row, item center. We'll have just device between gap 12, medium gap 16. Inside that, we'll display our component for site content and text graphic. We'll take a div. It will have a class called width full. On medium device, we'll say width 1 by half. Flex column, item center. On a medium device, we'll say item start, text center, medium device, text left. Then inside that, we'll display our component called header content. And we'll say div. It will have a class called inline block padding 2, padding x4, rounded full, background gradient to right. We'll have our second primary color, tel 400 by 10, and we'll have an indigo, it is bluish, and we'll have a margin bottom 6. Then we'll take a p tag, and it will have a class called text small, font medium, background clip text, we'll have our branding color. We'll take text transition and background gradient to right, and we'll have our primary color. Secondary color, we'll add animation gradient X. Perfect. Now inside that we can display the text called pre-sale now live. Simple. Now close this one, close the div, take h1, apply the classes. So we'll take the class text 4xl, medium text 5xl, text 6xl, font bold, and we'll have a dynamic class text color and padding border 4. Inside this, we'll take the span. It will have a class called background clip text transparent background gradient to right, and we'll have our primary color. We'll have a secondary color animating gradient X. Inside that, we can display our token name, and let's close this one. Close this one. Now we can come back here. We'll take h2. We'll have a class called text 2xl, medium text 3xl, font bold, margin bottom 6. Inside that, we'll display a span. It will have a class called background clip text transparent, background gradient to right, primary color, secondary color, and we'll have the animation. Inside that, we can simply display our token. Let's close this one. And let's take another span. We'll have a class called background clip text transparent, gradient to right, indigo, purple, and we'll display the empty string with our cell message. And close this one. And take a span. It will have a class, and we'll have a text color, the dynamic one, in which we can say stage 1. And you can simply update this stage based on the prices change you do for your token. Now we can close the h2. Perfect. Now we can come back here. Let's take a p tag, and let's apply the classes called secondary text color, text base, medium device text large, max width medium, margin bottom leading relax. And let's close this one. And let's provide the revolutionizing intelligence through decentralized innovation, and we'll join the future of blockchain technology today. And close this one. We'll take this feature highlights. There we can highlight all the things. So we'll take a div. It will have a class called flex wrap gap 4 margin bottom 8. Then we'll take a div. Let's take a class padding x, padding y2, rounded full, and we'll have our dynamic class. We'll say is dark mode, then we'll add background tail 500, else we'll go with the tail 100 normal one. Then we'll take the second color, dynamic color, say is dark, then we'll say tail our primary color, and now we'll go with the secondary color. And we'll go with the text small, font medium, flex item center, and close the div. And here we have to paste our SVG icon. So I have simply copy and paste here quickly. So we got the SVG icon. Now we can come back here. Let's take the text called limited presale, and we can close the div. So it will have our icon and we'll have this particular text. Now take a div. It will have a class called padding x 4, padding y 2, rounded full, and we'll have our dynamic class. So we'll take this is dark mode, then we'll display the indigo background color, else we'll go with the indigo 100 without percentage. Else we go to the second condition is dark mode, then we'll go with the 10 indigo 300, else we'll go with the 700 for the text. and call this text small, font medium, flex item center, and close this one. Inside the div, inside it we have to paste the second SVG icon, home to. So let me quickly paste. We got our SVG icon. Now we have to give our text. So let's call this exclusive benefits, and we can simply close our div and close our div. Background decorative element, the animation pattern we have to add. Take a div, will have a class called absolute, bottom 0, left 0, width 64, height 64, background gradient to right, and we'll have a second primary color, indigo, and we'll have a rounded full, blur 3 XL, and Z is going to be minus. And it's going to be a self-closing div. Then we'll close the div. Now we have to work on the right side of the component where we have the token purchase section. Take a div, it will have a class called width full, medium with 1 by 2, max with medium, max auto relative, will display loading overlay. So we have added the 3-second buffer time every time the page will load. So that's the loader we're going to display. Take this is loader true. Take a div, it will have a class called absolute, insert 0, z10, 20, flex item center, justify center, background black 50%, and we'll have a blur small and rounded XL. Inside that, we'll take a div, it will have a class called flex column item center, and here we take a div, it will have a class called width full, width 12, height 12, border 4, border will have a color primary, and we'll have the transparent rounded full, and we'll have an animated spinner, and bottom going to be 4. And let's close the div. Let's close the div and close the div. So this is our loader, internal loader, and close the dynamic component. We'll take the component called main card where we have to display the entire data. We'll take the div. Let's take a class called card background, backdrop blur small, rounded XL, and we'll have the card border small, shadow XL, overflow hidden, transform, transition duration is going to be 500, and we'll have a over effect, we'll have a shadow 2 XL. Let's close this. Inside the div, we'll take a div, it will have a class called padding 6, medium may padding white 8. We'll have a dynamic component, will say token balance, means if user don't have the token balance or the token balance user is equal to 0, if any one of these condition is true, then we have to display this component. We'll take a div, and we'll have a class called text center, text small, we'll have a secondary text color, and we'll say margin bottom 4, gradient text to right, and we'll have our primary tail color and the indigo color, and we'll have a padding y2, padding x4, rounded large. Let's close this. In this, we have to display can't find token in your wallet. So this component will display when there is no token available in the user wallet, the token we are selling. But if it has the token, then we have to simply close the div and we have to hide this particular dynamic component. Let's come back here. Now we'll call the card header. Let's call div, it will have a class called text center. We'll take a div, it will have a class called inline block, padding 1.5, padding x3, rounded full, background gradient to right. We'll have our primary color, secondary color, and we'll have indigo. We'll have a margin bottom 2. We'll take the p tag, it will have a text small, font medium, background clip text, text transparent, background gradient to right. We'll have a primary color, second primary color, and we'll have the animation over the text. Inside that, we have to display our data limited time offer, and let's close the p tag. We got that. Now we can come back here. We'll take a close the div, and we can take this S3 text excel text center font bold margin bottom 1 background clip text text transparent background gradient to right, and we'll have our primary color and the second primary color animation we have. And so that we can display this stage 1 buy and the token symbol. Now let's close this one. Then we can come back here. We'll take the div. It will have a class text center text small. We'll have a secondary text color margin bottom 4. Let's close the div. Until price increase, and close the div. Close the div. Take the block for displaying the price information. We'll take a div. It will have a class called flex justify between item center text small medium margin bottom 3 padding x1. Inside the div, we'll take a div. It will have a class called dynamic secondary color flex call. Inside the div, we'll take a span. It will have a class called text small margin bottom 1, and we'll say current price, and let's close that one. Now we'll take a span. It will have a class called text color, and we'll say font medium. In that, we have to display the price, and that's coming from our environment variable, and we'll display the currency. Let's close this one. Now we can close the div. We'll take another div. It will have a class height 10 width background bottom. We'll have the transparent gray transparent, and it's a self closing div, so we'll have a styling overlay, and let's take a div. Let's add a class secondary text color flex column text right. So we have done with the left. Now we have to do with the right one, and let's close this one. Let's take a span. We'll have a class called text excel margin bottom 1 next stage price, and the price we have set in our environment variable. So we'll take the span, add the classes text color font medium, and we have the next stage price. So let's call this next price token USD price, and we'll display the currency. Now let's close the span, and we can close the div. Close the div. Come back here. Now we'll take the progress bar. We already have the function. Let's inject that. So we'll take the div. We'll take the class called width full height 4, and we'll have our dynamic class. So we'll say is dark mode, then we can display the background gray, else we'll go with the gray 200 by 70%. We'll go with rounded full margin bottom 3 overflow hidden. Let's close this one. We'll take a div, and in that we can simply define our data. So we'll take the class. It will have a height full rounded full background gradient to right, and we'll have a primary gradient. We'll add an animation progress relative. We'll have the style, and this one is going to be dynamic style based on the percentage. So we can come back with, we'll have our math.mix, and we'll say calculate percentage. So this will automatically update. Very simple. Now close this one. We'll add the key called progress, and we'll call the calculation progress percentage and the function, and close the. And that will take a div. It will have a class called absolute top 0 left 0 with full height is going to be full background white, and we'll have a semi effect. and it's going to be a self-closing div. Let's close the div. Close the div. I hope you guys are following me. Just follow it the way I'm typing it. Every single thing would be working fine. This one is the bigger component, that's why I'm going a little faster. And it's only the JSX, okay? Now we can come back here. We'll take the progress status. We'll take a div. It will have a class called flex. Justify between, text small, margin bottom 6, padding 1. Then we'll take this div class, secondary text color. We'll take this total raised and the font we have raised, which is coming from our contract. So we'll take the span. We'll have a class called dynamic text color, font medium. We'll display the space, parse float, contract info, and we have the total sold. We're going to simply multiply that the token price which is coming. So in that way we can get that what worth of token we have sold, and we can call it 0 by default if anything goes wrong. And let's take the statement. So we'll say if it's true, then we can go with our actual value. What we are doing first, we are checking the condition that do we have the data. It's a getter, we have the both the data. Then we are simply displaying the data. We'll say pass token price, and that's what we have to do the multiplication. So we'll get that. So first checking that do we have the data, then we are rendering it, and we have to call this 2 fix, so it will take the 2 decimal, and we have the else is going to be 0. We have to simply, now we have to give the currency. Let's call it pole. We'll change that letter because I want to show you a couple of configurations. So let's call the span. And let's close the div. Take a div, it will have a class, secondary text color, font medium. Take a span, it will have a class called text primary. Then we'll have font semi bold. We'll take this calculate progress and we'll display the percentage, that how much percentage of token we have sold. Let's close this one. And we'll take this completed. Close the div. Close the div wider. So we'll have some space. And it's very simple. We'll take a div. We'll take the class border top and we'll have a dynamic. So we'll say it's dark mode, then we'll have a border gray, else we'll have a border gray 200. And we'll say margin y is going to be 5 pixels. Then close this one. So this will give us the border. Now we have to work on the body. So we'll say token price. So we'll take the div. It will have a class called flex, item center, justify center, space 3x, margin bottom 6. Then we have a divide. We'll have a class called width 10, height 10, rounded full, background gradient to right, and we'll have a primary color, secondary color, flex, item center, justify center. Inside that we'll take a span. We'll have a class called text large, font bold, text transparent, background clip text, background to right, and we'll have a primary and secondary color. We'll add 1. So 1 is equal to how much money? Let's close this one. Then we'll close the div, take a span. Let's add the classes, text color, text large, font medium, and we'll have our token symbol, and we'll give this one. Now we'll take a div. It will have a class called flex, padding x3, padding y1, rounded large, green gradient to right. We'll have a secondary color, indigo. Inside that div, we'll take a span. It will have a class called text large, font bold, text transparent, background clip text, background gradient, and we'll have a primary color, purple, which is a secondary color. Now inside this span, we have to display our token price, and we'll display the currency. Very simple. Close the span, close the div, and close the div. Let's take this token selection component. So it's going to be simple. We'll take a div. It will have a class called flex, x2, margin bottom 4. And we already have the function. We'll take the button, and it's going to be one button. So let's add the on click event, and we have the call handle token select, and it's port. So it will be passed on down that which currency we are purchasing. Now let's apply the classes. We'll take this get token button style. We'll say pole, so it will have a different color. Let's close this one. and we can display the, so let's call this cal class margin right 2, width 4, height 4, and we'll have the selected token. If equal to pool, then we have to add the filter brightness 200, else we go with the empty. Simple. Then we can come back here. We're done with the classes. Now we have to define the source of the image, which is the polygon. We already have the icon. I'm going to do all the changes, just wait. And we'll add the alteration. And we'll take the pay with currency, and we can close the button, close the div. Now we can come back here. Let's add the balance display, that how much balance user has in its wallet. So it's going to be a single element. We'll take a div, and it will have a class called text small, secondary text color, text center, margin bottom 6, padding y, padding x4, rounded large, and we'll have our dynamic color. So we'll say is dark mode, then we'll have a background gray 800, background 100. Close this one. So this is the class in which we have to display the balance. Let's take a span. We'll have a class called margin 2, right 2, and we'll select the selected token and the balance. We'll take a span. We'll have a class called text color, font medium, and in which we have to display the balance of the user. And we already have the function called get current balance, and this will give the balance of the user. Close this one. Let's take a span. We'll have a class margin left, and we'll display the selected token. Now take the amount from the input field. So we'll take a div. We'll have a class called grid column 1, on medium device grid column 2, and gap is going to be 4, margin bottom 5. We'll take a div, and inside this empty div we'll have our label. So we have to make it into a group. Apply the classes on the label. We'll say block. We'll have a secondary text color, text small, margin bottom, font medium. Let's close the label. Then we can display our pay with the selected token, means the native currency. Then we'll say label. Then we'll take a div. We'll have a class called relative, and there we have to add a couple of things. So we'll take this input and let's assign the property. We already have it. So we'll take the type is going to be text. Let's call the value is going to be input amount, whatever the user will put. Then we'll have a on change, and we have to get that and pass the amount to our handle amount change, and that's how we can get it. e.target.value. Then we can apply the classes called width full. We'll have a dynamic input background, rounded large, border, padding x4, padding y3, and we'll have the text color, focus ring 1, focus ring till 4, and we'll have our border, and transitional duration is going to be 200. Simple classes. I'm just going a little faster here, and close the step. And we'll take a div. We'll display the class called absolute right 3, right 3 top 1 by 2, transform minus translate. We'll have a flex item center space x2. Close the div. Take a span. It will have a class called text small, secondary text color. So let's quickly write it down so we can come back here. Let's type it selected token. Take a div. Will have a class rounded full flex item center, justify center. We'll take the token icon, and we can pass the token name, so it will give us the icon. And close the div. Close the div. Now we have to work on the next section. We'll take the label, block, and we'll take the secondary color, text small, margin bottom, and we'll have a font medium. Close that one. Receive token symbol. Together we will have a class relative. Take the input and let's define the variable that how much token it will get. We'll have a text, token amount, read only, rounded large border, and we'll have a text color. Let's take a div. It will have a class absolute, ring 3, top 1 by 2, transparent, and we'll have a translate wise and flex center, space x2. Take a span. Let's define the text. Perfect. Let's define the token symbol. Let's close this one. Take a div. It will have a class, flex item center, justify center. Now we have to display the image of our icon. Let's close the div. Div. Now we have to work on the button. We'll say is connected, then only we have to display the button. It will have a on click. We'll call the purchase function, and here we're going to check the state. Disable if there is no balance. So we'll have a multiple classes based on the balance and balance not exist. Primary color, and add the over effect. Add the else statement for the dark mode. Else we go with the cursor allowed. Text white, rounded large, padding 2, and we'll have a flex item center. Justify between transition or duration 300, and we'll have the shadow large. Has sufficient balance. Now we can add the else statement. Empty. Now we can simply display the button message. We already have the function. Close the button. Now we have to add the friend button, just a text component. This button will visible only in desktop mode when the user will connect with MetaMask. So let's quickly write down the classes. In which we can call the image, and we'll display the image, the logo, so user can add it. Let's add the classes. Let's give the space to the, and then we can display the span, add token to MetaMask. Perfect. Now just close this. This is the product. Now we have to work on the dynamic. If the user is not connected, then we have to display our custom button and pass the style as a prop. Let's close this. Now we can help on the helper link. Let's write it down very quickly. You can have this or you can simply skip that. Inside that, if you have to display the icon, we have the outline one, and we can display the classes on this, the reddish tab. Let's close this. Now we can take this text and we'll display the classes. We'll say need help. Close the div. Now we have to do the same thing. Let's take this grid column 2 and we're going to display the links. Take the anchor and let's assign the property. So let's redirect to the dashboard, but you have to provide your link. Just do the way I'm doing it. Flex center, duration 200. Perfect. Let's call this span. Let's add the classes dot and call how to buy and close this one. And we can have one more. So let's have it quickly. Connect to wallet and close this one. So this is the second link we have. Got it? Now let's take two more. Let me write it quickly. Same thing is going to be token info. Close this, and now we're going to have one more. So we are done with all the four menu. Now looks perfect. Now let's simply close the div, and we can simply close the div, close this one, close this one, close this one. So we are done with all the component. Now we have to add couple of custom classes. So let's close this quickly. Now we can take the scroll. So user can click and they can go on top. So let's take a div. It will have a class called fix bottom ring 6. Inside the div, we'll take the button. Let's add the property. It will have an on click window dot scroll to top, and we'll have a smooth. Let's add the classes. Background. We'll have a primary color, secondary color, and we'll have the animation, and on over effect we'll have the primary and the secondary color with the higher value, and we'll have a shadow with indigenous flex item center, justify center. We'll have a transition all and with the duration of over effect, and we'll have a little bit scale. Let's add the attribute called scroll to top. Close this one, and inside this we have to display the SVG icon. So let me quickly copy. So simply copy and paste. So this is our SVG icon. Let's close the button, close the div. Now we can add the custom CSS. Let me add it very quickly. This is very basic CSS I'm applying. So we'll add opacity to 150. Then we'll have the transform scale is going to be a little higher and bigger than the previous one. And that's what how we have to set the value. So let's add it. Let's add the gradient pattern from our web. So hidden, we are adding the lighting glowing effect. So opacity is going to be changing based on the dark and light mode. So let's add it quickly. Now we have to add the last one, ray 3, with the movement, with the animation, with the higher value, infinity. And close this one. Let's add the final key move ray with a 0%. On the 100%, you have to simply scale it up. Let's add the property. Add the background size. And the keyframe. Close that one. Now we have to simply close the div, and we have to simply export this particular component. And finally we have done with this huge component. Finally we have completed our entire hero section. This one is the biggest component in our application, and we have spent tons of time designing the entire front end part and building the utility function. That's why I went a little quick here. If you guys have any problem, you can simply adjust the speed and you can rewatch it. So we're done with this, and that's the only thing I want to cover in this video as of now. In the next video we're going to do the testing, and we're going to do the modification and change the network right from here in the terms of currency. So let's do one thing. Let's quickly open up and let's see what we have developed and start the application and check the component we have. So our application got started. Now what we can do, we can simply save it, closed, and here you will find that as of now we are not getting any error. You can see this is loading is working fine, and the thing is working. Every single thing is going. The glowing effect is also having fine. The particles are also moving. So we are having quite good. We are having quite good, but these are the data is not reflecting quickly. So these are the fix we're going to do it, and we're going to choose the changes in the poll and the icon. And that's what we'll do in the next video. So let's move to the next video.